Hello, this is wmpyr, here to talk you through some of the basics for my eskrima system. Okay, a good place to start is the angles of attack form. So if you're new to my YouTube channel, please start with the angles of attack forms. There's a whole bunch, and I show a bunch on my YouTube channel as well, but there's many more. The ones that I prefer are on the short side, and like one that I recommend to you guys is my 7 angles of attack form, which is, it's just 7 moves. So let me demonstrate real quick. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and that's it. You know, so I really like that. Now, whatever angles of attack form that you learn, okay, so from there we are going to essentially, the idea is you don't just stop there. You go, okay, I've done it many times. I know the form. Okay, that's it. No, that's just the start, okay? The idea is to experience the form in many ways as much as possible. I'm talking about doing it in the snow, in the rain, under a waterfall, in a lake, on the beach, on the sand, in the mud, on grassy ground. You know, whatever. You want to experience it on uneven terrain while running, you know, as many different ways as you can, while holding broken bottles instead of a stick, or, you know, just different things. Because the more you experience that, the more comfortable you're going to be in a real life situation when things are unexpected, you know, things can go wrong. Then you can say, hey, I've been in worse. I've practiced in worse conditions, so this is no problem. So that's the idea, okay? But before going into that, one of the main things that I want to present to you, and this comes from a principle for me that's extremely important, is I train this with the sticks, not because in a real life self-defense situation I expect to have a stick or sticks with me. I don't. The main idea is I practice and develop skills with this and then transfer it to whatever that's available, okay? So that's called improvised weapons training. So in a real life situation, I may grab a stapler, I may grab a drinking cup, I may grab my baseball cap, a newspaper, whatever that's around me, I'm gonna use that. And the reason being is because I don't want to damage my hands on the opponent. And a weapon is a great equalizer as well. I'm not trying to hurt them, I'm just trying to survive. I just want them to leave me alone. So in that case, I don't see any problem with using a weapon, and I do not see it as cowardly at all. Okay, so now, moving forward, we're going to use the stick in 4 different ways, and we're going to apply that once again with the different experiences that I was talking about. We're going to apply it to the stick immediately, right now. So one is to use this as an impact weapon, and that's what a stick is. It's a blunt impact weapon, okay? So just think of this as like a police baton, okay? And you're just going to club them with it, okay? So in that sense, you got to imagine that, and you're going to be going 1, 2, 3, 4. You are hitting, you're striking with this, okay? So that's what you're doing, okay? So you do your forms that way. You imagine boom, 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 like that. And 4, okay? Number 5, number 6, and numbers, whatever form that it is that you're practicing. But you imagine that you are making these strikes. Number 2 is a bladed weapon. So a bladed weapon acts differently. You have to pull to cut. You're making these slashes. So you make contact and then you pull. That is the cut. It's not that you're trying to strike them with it, you're trying to cut them with it. So when you go to a bladed weapon, please notice right here with my machete that the blade is where my second knuckles are, right here, as you guys can see. The second knuckle right here, that's where the blade is. This is how we, you know, just grab a knife or something, and you're going to notice that that's very natural. That's what happens. So when you are practicing with the stick, you want to emphasize that second knuckle right here. You got to say to yourself, that is where the blade is going to be. So when I slash right here, I'm going to lead with this, my second knuckle, and this is the blade right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. You see, now I'm drawing a lot more because I'm focusing that this is a blade, all right? Even though it's the same form that I was doing earlier, the performance is a little bit different because I'm emphasizing blade. So now, number 3 is a flexible weapon. So a flexible weapon is, it can happen. So in a real life situation, you may grab something like a t-shirt, a chain, a belt. Those are all flexible weapons. And so when something like that comes into play, once again, it's a little bit different from a stick. So or should I say a lot different. So you want to be able to handle some of that. And that comes in from this right here. We do our nunchuck practice. Boom, boom. So we use nunchuck type movements, boom, like so, and practice the stick this way to help us get a little bit used to flexible type weapons. So that's our link right there, is the nunchuck. The nunchuck is probably the closest thing from going from stick to a flexible weapon, like a chain or something, a belt, something like that. This is going from stick to nunchuck is easier because it just has one area that's flexible, one joint, and the rest is basically a stick split into 2. So that's why we go to nunchuck type movements. And nunchuck type movements, flexible weapon with the stick is you're going to be doing stuff like this, okay, like a flail type movement. So the number 1, number 2 will be done more like a flail, like this. And then you got 3 and 4 where you're wrapping it more around your body. And then we got, 5, 6, and then number 7 is a stab, which is difficult to do, or sometimes you just can't do it at all. So then you just like wrap it around your hand and it's a punch instead. Number 4, which is the last one. The last one is a projectile weapon. So a projectile weapon in this case is you're going to throw the stick. It's that simple. You're throwing the stick. You could throw it like a frisbee. Okay, you could throw it like that. You could launch it that way. You could throw it straight on like this, almost like underhand, like so, or you might just throw it like a spear. So this is not something that I personally specialize in, but it's definitely something that I have practiced and I have experienced, and that's what's important. Maybe you're not going to specialize in it, but if the situation ever arises, who knows, it might be good to have in your arsenal than not. And one more thing to focus on is a lot of times we end up using the wrist like this. As you get more and more advanced, we're going to use wrist movements. Boom, 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 boom. Okay? Why? Because it's so fast. It's so fast to use the wrist, and it gives you snapping power. Especially when you go to a smaller, compact weapon like a knife. The weight of the knife is not enough to generate any real power, so then the snapping motion is going to help you out with that. So the problem with using the wrist is that some people get so good with it that that's all they do is the wrist movement only. Okay, so they're striking using the wrist. And when you go to a heavier weapon, like let's say a short sword, this is nice and light, but let's say this was a short sword. You're not going to be able to do as much of this kind of stuff. Boom. It's going to be much, much more difficult because it is heavier. So if you, once again, want to limit yourself just to the stick and lighter and smaller weapons, then maybe that's not a problem. But for me, improvised weapons is the principle here. So you want to be able to handle, at least some heavier weapons. Maybe not super heavy like a sledgehammer, but heavier than the average eskrima stick for sure. So in that case, you have to lock your wrist. So lock your wrist and practice doing the form 1, 2, 3, 4 with the locked wrist. Okay, so definitely some of you guys that are more advanced and you have become smoother and quicker and faster because you're using your wrist now, go back to locking your wrist and include the practice this way. All right. And then for those of you that just going 1, 2, 3, as you get better, you will be able to learn how to incorporate the wrist. So, it goes both ways depending on your skill level. But I recommend practice both. That's it for now. Thank you for watching and take care, folks.